Hey guys, what's up? This is day 9 of building my Chrome extension in public. Today I worked on fixing the bugs that my extension had, and I'm very happy to say that I fixed both the bugs. It had two bugs. Bug number 1 was the one I was working on since the last 2 days, and I finally managed to fix it. I say fixed it because I didn't exactly fix it. I just removed the entire code, the entire function that was actually causing the bug. And so the bug was when the user clicks on the buttons on the sidebar would randomly just close. So what was causing the bug is the function I removed. This function had the event listeners that listened for the clicks on the browser. So whenever the user clicked outside the sidebar would close. That's what this function did. But for some reason, the function was listening for clicks even on the sidebar at random occurrences. It's not like there was a pattern which I could replicate every single time. After trying a lot of workarounds for the past 2 days with Claude, I just had to remove that entire function. That helped me get rid of the bug. But the problem is now if the user wants to close the sidebar, the user will have to use the escape key. That's the only way. If the user clicks outside the sidebar, nothing happens. The sidebar stays open, which is not good UX wise. So I'll have to find a way around that. I have spent enough time on this bug. I think it's time to move on to the next one. Bug 2 was again with the sidebar. When the user would click on the buttons on the sidebar would reposition itself randomly. It's a floating sidebar. So if the sidebar started on the bottom of the page, when the user clicks on the button, the sidebar would move to the middle of the page. And then when the user clicks on the button again, it would move to the top of the page. So this was happening because the sidebar by design and function, it's meant to be repositioned. That's part of the function. Again, for some reason, the dragging functionality was being triggered too early and unnecessarily. I had to find a workaround for that also. So that's what I focused on day 9. The solution I got was to use a hybrid approach. I tried different solutions. First, what Claude did for me was to rewrite the entire dragging functionality. So how it works is with the mouse button, right? So the code listens for the mouse down event. So I had to rewrite that, and we tried rewriting it and tested it again. There was a slight improvement. The bug still happened, but it was delayed. But again, that's not a solution, right? So I tried rewriting it again, and this time Claude came up with a unique solution. So what Claude suggested was, instead of changing the mouse event functionality completely, what we could do is we could detect how far the user has dragged the cursor. So for example, if the user has dragged more than 8 pixels, that means it's an intentional dragging action. That means we will enable the dragging functionality. And if the user has dragged the cursor less than 8 pixels, that means it was an accidental drag, which means we will disable the dragging functionality. So that sounded good in theory, and I did implement that, and that sort of worked. It worked as expected. The only problem was whenever the dragging actually happened, it was very jagged, it was very jittery, and it wasn't smooth. So that was a problem, because that's worse than not being able to drag. It's not even slow animation, it's a very jagged animation, right? Very jittery animation. So I had to do a workaround for that as well. So what we figured out was to detect how far the user was dragging, we were doing too much math. The jitteriness wasn't happening because of the JavaScript. It was happening because of the CSS variables. The CSS variables were there, I guess, I forgot exactly the terminology, but long story short, we had to use a hybrid approach where instead of completely relying on the CSS variables, we had to mix it up with inline styles. Whenever the user starts dragging the sidebar, it would convert into inline styles. And when the dragging stops, it would sync with the CSS variables. And I implemented that, and it started working perfectly, exactly like how I wanted it. And so now I'm very happy with how that came out. So yeah, that was good. Bug number 1 and 2 are fixed. Bug number 1 is not exactly fixed. I did a big workaround for bug number 1. Bug number 2 is completely fixed. So what I'm thinking is I will go back and try to add that function back, which the one I deleted, or I will move forward and just start developing feature number 2, because I've spent enough time on feature number 1 and fixing the bugs that came along with it and on the UI. I think it's time to move on. Or maybe I will just polish up the UI UX more instead of having to do that later on. I don't know. I will figure that out tomorrow. But yeah, that's about it. I will see you guys on day 10. Yeah. See ya.